This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Rob Hughey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Rob, welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.
Eric, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm looking forward to our good conversation.
Yeah, definitely. If you could, just for viewers' sake, tell them who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Rob Hughey. Eric and I, we're still open for interpretation whether or not we are long-lost relatives or not. Last name, very interesting last name, but so my name is Hughey. From the Kansas City area originally, grew up in Kansas City, went to Blue Valley West High School, went to college at the University of Central Missouri. Again, very small world. Eric is also a UCM grad, so a lot of similarities there. But yeah, I love playing golf. I love hanging out with friends and love watching Chiefs football. So I like that sweatshirt that my good friend Eric's got on today. And
if you could also tell viewers, a little bit about your company and, why you do what you do.
Yeah. So I'll give it the really abbreviated version. So I started a company with my mom about 2 years ago, and the company's called Team Cura. And what we do is we provide online education for high school student athletes that are pursuing college athletic scholarships. And so what we focus on are really the intangible interpersonal skills that really make a student athlete that might be kind of flying under the radar a little bit, much like I was. So I played golf in college at UCM, and it was a great experience for me. And I loved all 4 years of being a college athlete. I made some of the best friends in the entire world. UCM was a great fit for me. Class sizes were outstanding, but I really had to make myself marketable as a student athlete in order to get a college athletic scholarship ultimately. And so that's really what we focus on, is how can student athletes that maybe are flying under the radar, those 2 or 3 athletes, as we like to say, that can really put themselves in the best position to earn a college athletic scholarship similar to I did. So so it's delivered on an e-learning platform that's actually being converted to a new hosting platform right now.
Very cool.
Salesforce platform. And that has Einstein Analytics with it. It's through a grant that we won through the Kauffman Foundation and the Digital Sandbox KC Corporation. So we're really excited about that, and I kind of geek out on some of the technology associated with it. But it's a blast working with my mom as well. It's very fulfilling, and having a family business. Nobody ever said that entrepreneurship would be both rewarding and extremely difficult at the same time, but I wouldn't change a day of it.
There's a great book that I'll plug for the episode. It's by a local writer, Diana Kander, and she wrote a book called The All-In Startup. And, one of the kind of foundational pillars of the book is that customers don't buy products, they buy solutions to their problems. What was the underlying thinking of starting Team Cura, and to use the analogy, what migraine problem were you solving with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are several issues that people are faced with in the world that we live in, and I'll address a couple of them. But, to no fault of a high school student or a junior high school age student's fault of their own. I mean, to no fault of their own, they just haven't had that experience up to that point in their life, due to the fact that, they're maybe 15, 16, 17 years old. And they just haven't had that professional type of experience yet. And again, that's not, their own fault by any means, but we take a culmination of educational areas that student athletes need in order, and students alike as well, that they need in order to be successful, both in, in the classroom and then in the business world as well. And so, that's just one area as well that, we focus on. But then I also look at it from drawing on my own personal experience, that getting a scholarship to play a sport, I mean, that was a dream scenario in itself. And, the potential to save over the duration of 4 years of tuition money, that's got a lot of upside potential. And again, I don't want to get too much into the plug for, skills beyond drills, this is how much it costs and all that, because I know that's not the purpose of the discussion. But a small investment up front versus the upside potential over the duration of 4 years to save tuition money. So there's a lot of upside potential there. And so, my parents were very appreciative of the fact that, they were saving early on in a 529 plan. And then after I was done with college, that, that money was there for them to do whatever they wanted to do with, because I did earn that scholarship. So, that's 3 areas right there that, we solve if families are saving in 529 plans. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I won't, go too much down that path, but families have 529 plans. The son or daughter is able to earn a college athletic scholarship, and then being able to educate, young people on the importance of interpersonal skills at a young age. It's just going to pay dividends for them later down the road, and when they get out of school as well.
Definitely. All good points. In terms of kind of the next step after that, you have the idea, you think it could be valuable for young people coming out of high school and trying to save money in college that you just alluded to. What was the next step after that in terms of, validating your business service idea? What did that look like? What did customer number one look like for you to get to, where you are now?
Yeah. It's funny you asked that, because you and I, we were exchanging some emails before this discussion. And, I love the philosophy of, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and in many cases, this does work out. It's like, I had a problem. And so I solved that problem by creating a business that's, a product or a service of some sort. And again, there's several instances out there that I think that would be very much the case. Mm-hmm. But, as a consumer behavior, the general marketplace, the consumer is only worried about, what can you do for me type of thing. So, we just through some trial and some discussion and just being out in the general public. And, my mom, she's been a college professor for, 20 years. She has worked in HR for 30 years. And that's what her career has basically been built on, career in HR and in human development and training. I mean, she has experience in this firsthand. And so through a combination of talking with, what are hiring professionals seeing from young, late millennials, early Gen Zers that are entering the work world right now, and then a combination of high school students, through some family friends that, my son or daughter was really finding this to be an issue. Man, if only there was a solution out there for this problem. And we're like, okay, we have the experience of being a student athlete and going through that whole process. Mm-hmm. It was like before going into college, and then being in college, and then the benefits of being a student athlete after college, what that can do for you. And then the education, training, development, hiring process, expertise from my mom. And we blended those two ideas together. And then, we created the digital learning platform that, I'm kind of the spokesperson of our educational curriculum. I'm not a Hollywood actor by any means, but I do genuinely enjoy being on camera though. So it's like kind of taking a keen liking to that. So that's
very cool.
Not too bad either. I've added to my skill set. So it's
important thing to do as an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah. You wear 100 different hats in any given day, and actor being one of them in my instance.
Yeah. What's that relationship like working with your mom and having her being, the partner in the business?
Yeah. Yeah. I get this question a lot as well. And I always look around first. I mean, I'm in
like she's going to pop out of the closet or walk in the door behind you.
She might hear this at some point, but right now I'm by myself. But all jokes aside, at the end of the day, she's my mom, and we have very different working styles. She's very type A. I'm a little bit more type B personality. But you know what? At the end of the day, she's my mom. I love her to death still, and we make it work. There's certainly challenging times. I mean, there's no way to dispute that, but at the end of the day, we typically overcome it and we move on and we find a way to get past whatever differences it is that we're seeing. And, we collaborate really well. And, she has a lot of great ideas. I have a lot of great ideas. Some of my ideas aren't so great. Sometimes hers aren't so great. So, it's very comfortable to give that candid feedback. That's like, you know what, that wasn't quite right. Or, you know what? Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel strongly about that as well. Do whatever it is that you want to do as far as that vision goes. And so we can have very candid conversations, very honest feedback sessions. And that's really hard to come by, I feel like, in the world that we live in today. Just good, genuine, honest feedback. And thankfully, my mom is not too apprehensive about giving that to me.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it. Anybody working with family, I imagine the transparency is a level 10 compared to the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency is, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10 out of 10.
I feel like so many entrepreneurs out there or aspiring entrepreneurs have an idea, they do all this research and they just continue researching, they never act on it.
Yeah.
You obviously have some experience with this where you saw the need and just kind of acted on it. So what's your encouragement to listeners or viewers who are following your footsteps?
Yeah, I've read a lot of I've read a lot of just business, entrepreneurship, self-help, self-motivations type of books. I mean, you and I are very similar on that front, and I love just absorbing that type of information. So I love reading books, and one of my favorite books is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And the kind of the underlying theme of the message of that book is, either create a product or service that's like basically a monopoly and create, a one of one business out there. Or if you have a business that's, a competitor of another existing business out in the marketplace, your business needs to be 10 times better in order for it to be successful. So, I like to absorb all this information, but at some point I have to kind of take it all with, a granular type of view and just really dumb down and really feel like whatever is most beneficial to me at whatever point that I'm at in entrepreneurship or even in my life, how is it applicable to me? And so, I really like the term "go forth and prosper," because the only way to learn, and I learn on a daily basis. I mean, there's some things that I do on a daily basis that work really well, some things that do not work at all. But it's constant trial and error, and some things work better than others. But it's just the thing that I would always say, and like I have to remind myself of this constantly, is just go forward and do, instead of go forward and maybe think about it or overanalyze it. Just go forward and do. And if it works out, you know what to do next time. If it doesn't work out, not the end of the world. Just fix it and find a way to do it better. So
without a doubt. Yeah, I love that mindset. And you make a good point there too, in terms of kind of the underlying theme of the book, dominate a market if you can, and be, a market of one if you can. So to that point, when you were starting up Team Cura, were there any other services or companies out there doing what you were doing? And if so, how do you combat against that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are several entities out in the marketplace that we would call indirect competitors. They quote themselves as recruiters that, you pay either an upfront sum or a monthly sum of money and put together a recruiting video and statistics and in general, standardized test scores. And don't get me wrong, that information is extremely important throughout the college evaluation process as a student athlete. But we didn't find, and we haven't found, any other entity out there doing exactly what we are doing, the way that we're doing it, with a research-backed component and that's supported through the Salesforce platform. It's such a niche product and market space that we have identified. And, there's a lot of resources out there. There's for high school students or high school student athletes, coaches, trainings. There's a lot of resources out there. But as far as getting to a product that just keeps getting further and further niched down, there is not another company out there that is doing exactly what we're doing the way that we're doing it. So, we view that as a good and a bad thing at the same time. Definitely more good than bad. But as far as, evaluating things in the marketplace, we don't have much to benchmark because like I said, there's nothing out there to benchmark it on. So
right.
we're really that one of one. And we're figuring it out and learning, what type of hot buttons really, really stick with the collaborating partners that we have, and what type of, pain points that we need to be solving for our customers. And so that's really fun though, for me personally, because like I said at the beginning, Eric, that if I can help that next person, that's wanting to experience or go through the experience that I had, if I can just make that process just 10% or 20% easier for that person, that's what's really rewarding for me. Because, at the end of the day, I loved my experience playing college sports and the dividends that it paid for me, going into the business world. So
For sure.
Drawn out answer.
No, it's perfect. You nailed it. It sounds like you, from a business model standpoint, I guess to compare it to an old analogy, you've taught people or students how to fish rather than giving them fish, as what some of your competitors might be doing.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're equipping young people with the resources and the know-how and the wherewithal to do it themselves. And because that's ultimately what you have to do when you're either graduating from high school or graduating from college or wherever you're at in your life. We have to sell ourselves on a daily basis. And it's pivotal. It really is. I mean, in order to, it sounds maybe a little bit narcissistic, but if you want to get what you want, you have to really be an advocate for yourself. And so that's what we're equipping young people to do is, put themselves in a situation where they can't be told no. So,
No. One question I meant to ask at the beginning is, what does Team Cura mean? What's the naming significance?
Yeah. So Cura is Latin for caring and concern. That's a good question, Eric, because I don't really quite know where that came from, but it's, we also, so side note, we also really like Traverse City, Michigan. So when we say we really like Traverse City, we're going to TC. So subliminally, it kind of worked out nicely because our logo is Team Cura and the condensed version is just a TC.
Very cool.
So that kind of is near and dear to us because it reminds us of going to Traverse City, Michigan. So I don't know if that had anything to go into the naming of our company, but I guess nicely that way.
For sure. Yeah, it all makes sense to me. I got a couple of bookend questions that I always kind of close out the show with every guest. But before we get to that, is there anything else on top of your mind in terms of entrepreneurship, advice that you pass along, anything like that?
Oh, I'm sure I could talk for another hour. Maybe we'll have to do another episode down the road, because I feel like I could probably go on for another hour or two at least, especially with good conversation with a guy like you.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, sounds good. I definitely welcome that. But to get into those bookend questions, one thing I'm trying to do is foster community more. So is there a current business ask that you have? And it really could be anything, you have a question with the finances, or a marketing tactic, or just want to meet somebody in Kansas City or nationally at a company or a certain industry, anything like that you're thinking of top of mind?
Well, nothing that really comes to the really top of my mind. What I really like to do on a daily basis, Eric, is just have good, genuine conversation with people. Especially through COVID, I try to stay away from talking about COVID and how it's impacted our business, because, at the end of the day, everybody's been impacted by it one way or the other.
Yep.
But just having good conversation with people is really what I enjoy doing the most. So if there's anybody out there that just really wants to see my mug on Zoom, connect with you and just hear your story and talk about how we might be able to help one another and just learn more about whoever it is that could benefit from what it is that we do. So just good, genuine conversation is really, the biggest ask that I have. And that's a daily basis for me. So
Sounds good, man.
Make it simple.
For sure. You mentioned 0 to 1, Peter Thiel's book. Is there any other books, or are there, people or resources that could be entrepreneurial or mindset, anything that you'd recommend to our viewers?
Yeah, so I will recommend self-help and entrepreneur book. I'll start with self-help. So my goal for this year, I set out at the beginning of the year. And have you ever read any Malcolm Gladwell books, Eric?
I have not. I've heard him mentioned a lot. I need to.
Yeah, highly, highly recommend it. So Malcolm Gladwell has 6 books that he's written. I'm on my 5th of the 6 Malcolm Gladwell books this year alone. And so I made it my goal to read all 6 Malcolm Gladwell books by the end of the year.
That's
Both
awesome.
Strangers and Outliers are 2 of my favorite books of all time. So I highly recommend those, just from a inspiration and really feel good type of books. And then from an entrepreneurship book, I really like the book Instant Influence by Michael Pantalon. It's just really talking about the psychology around the buying process, and really talking about creating a product or a service that's going to be beneficial for the receiver. And it's just a very good book in going into the psychology behind the buying process, and establishing a customer base and making sure that you're taking care of those customers. So I recommend all 3 of those books. They are extremely good.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link to those in the show notes for anyone who's listening or watching. Last question, Rob. Where can people best get a hold of you if they want to connect, as you alluded to earlier, or just want business personal advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Rob, R-O-B, Hughey, H-U-G-H-E-Y, same as Eric's last name. You can find me at rob@teamcura.com. That's TEAMCURA.com. You can even call or text message me as well. I like to give my phone number out because I like to just have good conversations. So you can always link that in the show notes as well, Eric. And
okay,
whoever out there's listening and wants to get a hold of me, I'd love to have a good conversation. And any friend of Eric is a friend of mine.
That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms, or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Hughey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.